A fourth-grade girl's keen eye leads to a school uproar. When young Sophia spots a test error, she speaks up, but gets suspended. Just watch what happens next as this brave student fights for justice and changes her school forever. The clock ticked loudly in the silent classroom. 24th graders sat nervously at their desks, working on their State Comprehensive Assessment Program, SCAP. Among them was 10-year-old Sophia Rodriguez. As she flipped open the science test booklet, her sharp eyes immediately spotted something odd. "Excuse me, Mrs. Thompson?" Sophia whispered, raising her hand. "Could you come here for a moment?" The teacher's heels clicked as she strode over. Sophia pointed to a question and spoke in a low voice. "I think there might be an error in this question about the solar system. The answer choices don't match what we learned in class." Mrs. Thompson frowned, examining the page. "Just choose the answer you think is best, Sophia." But Sophia couldn't let it go. She whispered even more quietly, "If there's a mistake in this question, how do we know there aren't mistakes in other questions too?" A murmur rippled through the classroom. Other students started checking their booklets, whispering to each other. "Quiet down, class!" Mrs. Thompson clapped her hands. "The test has been thoroughly reviewed. There are no more errors in the questions. Now, everyone focus on your own work." Sophia bit her lip, unsure. She'd always been taught to speak up when something wasn't right. Plus, this test was super important. It could affect which classes she'd be placed in next year. She raised her hand again. "Yes, Sophia?" Mrs. Thompson sighed. "I'm sorry, but I really think we should double-check the test questions. What if there are more mistakes?" The teacher's patience was wearing thin. "Sophia, that's enough. You need to continue with your test now, or I'll have to send you to the principal's office." Sophia's heart raced. She looked around at her classmates, seeing a mix of curiosity and fear on their faces. Taking a deep breath, she made a decision. "I can't take a test that might have mistakes," she said, her voice stronger now. "It's not fair to any of us." The room erupted into chaos. Some kids cheered, others looked horrified. Mrs. Thompson marched Sophia out of the classroom to the principal's office, her face red with anger. "Young lady, you've disrupted an important state test. I'm calling your parents, and you're suspended for the rest of the week," the principal said. Sophia felt tears welling up in her eyes as she sat outside the principal's office. She'd never been in trouble before. What would her parents say? But deep down, she knew she had done the right thing. After an hour, Sophia's parents, Elena and Carlos Rodriguez, arrived at the school. They looked worried and confused as they were ushered into Principal Johnson's office. "Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez," the principal began, "I'm afraid Sophia caused quite a disturbance during the SCAP test today. She refused to take the test and encouraged other students to do the same." Elena looked at her daughter. "Is this true, Sophia?" Sophia nodded, her voice small. "There was an error in the test questions. I was worried there might be more." Carlos's eyebrows shot up. "An error in a standardized test? That's pretty serious." Principal Johnson shifted uncomfortably. "It was a minor typo error. The other test questions are fine." "How can you be sure?" Elena asked. "If there was one error, couldn't there be others?" The principal's face hardened. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I assure you the test is valid. However, Sophia's actions today were unacceptable. She's suspended for the rest of the week." "Suspended?" Carlos exclaimed. "For pointing out a mistake and asking questions? That seems extreme." But Principal Johnson was firm. The family left the office and Sophia's shoulders slumped in defeat. That evening, as Sophia was eating dinner, her parents exchanged worried glances. "Honey," Elena said gently, "we're not mad at you. In fact, we're proud that you stood up for what you believed was right." "Really? But I got suspended." Carlos nodded. "Sometimes doing the right thing has consequences, but that doesn't mean you should stop doing it." As they talked more about what happened, an idea began to form. Maybe they should fight back. The next day, while Sophia was at home, her parents started making phone calls. They contacted other parents and even a lawyer friend to brief them about the fourth grader who'd been suspended for questioning a faulty test. By Friday, the story had exploded. Other parents came to Sophia's house. Sophia felt overwhelmed by all the attention, but her parents assured her she was doing something important. On Monday morning, Sophia returned to school, flanked by her parents and their lawyer friend, Sarah. The school was buzzing with excitement, and the kids waved and cheered as Sophia walked down the hallway. In the principal's office, Sarah laid out their case. "By suspending Sophia for pointing out a legitimate concern, you violated her right to free speech and potentially compromised the integrity of an important state test." Principal Johnson sputtered, "Now wait a minute." But Sarah wasn't finished. "We're prepared to take this to court if necessary, but first we're asking that you reinstate Sophia immediately, remove the suspension from her record, and agree to an independent review of the SCAP test materials. The principal's face went from red to pale. He glanced nervously at the lawyer who'd been called in. After a tense discussion, they agreed to Sophia's reinstatement and the independent review. However, they refused to remove the suspension from her record. As Sophia left the office, she was surprised to see a crowd of students gathered in the hallway. They burst into applause when she appeared. "Way to go, Sophia!" someone shouted. "You're our hero!" yelled another. Sophia felt a mix of embarrassment and pride. She never meant to cause so much attention, but it seemed like what she did mattered to many students. Over the next few weeks, while the SCAP test was being reviewed, Sophia tried to get back to her normal routine at school. Some kids treated her like a celebrity, wanting to sit with her at lunch. One day, Sophia overheard a group of fifth graders talking near her locker. "She just wanted attention," one boy said. "Now we'll probably have to take the test all over again because of her." Sophia felt her cheeks burn. Was that true? Had she messed things up for everyone? That night, she confided in her parents, tears streaming down her face. "Maybe I should have just taken the test like everyone else." Her dad pulled her into a hug. "Sophia, listen to me. You saw something wrong and you spoke up. That takes courage, and look at all the good that's come from it. People are talking about how to make tests better and fairer for all kids." Sophia thought about that a lot over the next few days. She decided to channel her energy into something positive. With help from her parents and teacher, she started a student representative to give kids a voice in school decisions. Their first project? Creating a suggestion box where students could share their ideas and concerns about everything from cafeteria food to playground equipment. Eager to smooth things over, Principal Johnson agreed to meet with the representatives once a month to discuss their ideas. As winter turned to spring, the school underwent big changes. The independent review of the SCAP test revealed several more errors and more questions. The State Board of Education was forced to discard the results and rethink its entire testing process. But the impact went beyond just one test. Schools across the state, and even in other states, started looking at different ways to measure student progress. Some began using project-based assessments instead of multiple-choice tests. Others implemented regular check-ins throughout the year rather than one big, stressful exam. Sophia's suggestion box idea spread to other schools, too. Kids everywhere were finding their voices, speaking up about everything from bullying to outdated textbooks. It seemed like a new era of student empowerment had begun. One day in May, Sophia sat in the school auditorium, hardly believing what she was seeing. A representative from the governor's office stood at the podium, talking about a new education bill that had just been passed. "And so," the woman said, smiling at Sophia, "it gives me great pleasure to announce the Sophia Rodriguez Student Voice Act, which guarantees students the right to question and provide feedback on their educational experiences without fear of punishment." Sophia felt dizzy with excitement and disbelief. How had all this happened just because she'd spotted an error? As she stood to shake hands with the governor's representative, Sophia caught sight of Principal Johnson. He was clapping, a grudging smile on his face. Later that evening, when Sophia got home, "Mom, Dad, you won't believe what happened at school today." Elena appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "What is it, sweetie? Is everything okay?" Sophia took a deep breath, her words tumbling out in excitement. "Remember that new Student Voice Act they passed because of what happened with me? Well, today a representative from the governor's office came to our school." Her parents exchanged surprised glances as Sophia continued. She talked about the importance of students speaking up, and then she announced that they're officially calling it the Sophia Rodriguez Student Voice Act. Elena pulled Sophia into a hug. "Oh, honey, that's incredible. We're so proud of you." The next morning, Sophia walked into her classroom with her head held high. Her classmates greeted her with smiles and high fives. Mrs. Thompson, who had been skeptical at first, now looked at Sophia with respect. "All right, class," Mrs. Thompson said, clapping her hands. "Today we're going to do something a little different. Instead of a regular lesson, we're going to talk about the importance of critical thinking and speaking up when something doesn't seem right." Sophia couldn't help but grin. As her teacher began the discussion, she realized that her small act of courage had changed not just the school system, but also the way people thought about students and their opinions. As the school year ended, Sophia stood in front of a microphone. She was addressing the entire school at the end-of-year assembly. "When I spoke up about that test error," Sophia said, her voice clear and confident, "I never imagined all of this would happen. But I learned something really important, that our voices matter, no matter how young we are." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Students, teachers, and parents, all listening intently. "So, the next time you see something that doesn't seem right, or you have an idea that could make things better, don't be afraid to speak up. You never know what might happen." The applause was deafening. As Sophia stepped down from the podium, she felt excited about the future. She didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but she knew one thing for sure. She'd face them with courage, just like she had that day in the classroom. What do you think about standardized testing in schools? Have you ever spotted an error in a test or textbook? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring stories.